Hey, welcome everyone to the World of Dragons podcast, the podcast where a dragon and his rider get together to discover, review, and discuss dragon-centric media and literature, including but not limited to books, movies, games, and TV shows, to help you dragon fans find the next World of Dragons you wish to visit. I am your dragon, or the dragon, rather, Ray, and this is my rider, Bantam.
Hi.
Gentle
Gotta say,
pets.
flawless execution.
Flawless. The joy of writing things down so you can just read it. We are doing another half-C episode this time, releasing the first half first and then the second half in a week, because we have another preview, Jesus, there goes my perfect execution, another pre-release copy given to us by an author friend. If you looked at the runtime of this episode and it's like 20 minutes, that's why, don't panic, it's just the first half. So the book we were doing is called The
Lost Firebreather.
I keep wanting to say The Last Air. It's The Lost Firebreather by D.M. Gilmore. Fans of the show will remember that name. He wrote Lazy Scales, which is one of my favorite Dragons books. Juicebox.
It has put the word juicebox in a terrifying light that I don't like.
We're not going to talk about Lazy Scales. It's my favorite because I love the idea of the instincts, having a hard time fighting, controlling them. So a danger to even your friends. You could eat them at any moment. Oh my gosh.
Now that I think about it, most of our inside joke memes are from Lazy Scales. The Becca and
Becca.
But I'm a baby.
Mm-hmm. It's good. I really like Lazy Scales. If it would be probably my favorite series if it wasn't for fucking Becca. Between you and me, don't tell DM Gilmore, don't tell him, but I haven't read the second series of Lazy Scales yet. I just have zero interest in Becca.
Yeah, I mean, I think you made that. I think you stated that during the actual episodes.
Well, when the actual episodes, the second series wasn't out yet. I think just the first book was out. I think that's why I like werewolves so much. It's just the idea of this being a danger to people you care about by not being able to control it. It's a fun concept. But yeah, anyway. So this is another book series that he has written. The first book will be released today with the release of this episode of the podcast. Just brain-farted. So it's been really warm today and my brain is short-circuiting.
Ray has spent most of the day napping because of the
Not
heat.
even good napping. It's
And
tossing, turning in bed, just complaining because I need a fan to be blowing on me.
Cranky boy.
I'm such a cranky dragon. I'm gonna just... My new persona is just going to be an ice dragon so that I can use that to explain why I fucking hate the heat so much. Jesus God.
The biggest issue is that it was almost 90 degrees today, and it's going to be 55 tomorrow.
It's dropping 30 fucking degrees overnight. It's insane. It was just really warm today specifically. And our place does not handle it very well because lack of windows means no airflow, and so it's so bad in the summer. Oh my god. Anyway, there's a little peek into the life of Ray and Bantam.
I mean, I've been fine. I grew up in New England. I'm used to bad weather and shitty heat. So I've been pretty comfortable all day. I mean, it's mildly annoying when I'm trying to sleep, but
you stole the dog's fan last night. We got a box fan that sits on the floor so that it can be at the level of the dogs because they're Pomskis, and so I feel like they would overheat easily. And so last night, Bantam steals it to put it into his room to try to make it so he's cooler.
No, the puppies sleep with me. That's my defense. The puppies sleep in the bed with me. They needed the fan. It's their fan. I just was serving the puppies. The fact that I benefited was a happy coincidence.
No, I just like painting you as the villain. Stealing the dog's fan. Alright, so before we get into the review of the book, just really fast dragon news. Book 16 of Wings of Fire has been announced for a while, but there's been more information now. It's called The Hybrid Prince, and the point of view is going to be Umber, our favorite little gay mudwing. Very, very happy. I don't know exactly when the book is going to release. I don't know what the general plot is going to be, aside from the fact that there is yet a third island full of hybrids, but I don't know what the inciting incident, what's going wrong. I don't know where you can go after mind control plant, honestly. Wings of Fire can be a guilty pleasure, even if it's a very problematic book series. Let's just go with that. but the series continues. Scholastic will not let it die.
Well, I mean, when you have a cash cow, why would you?
How many books are in the Warriors series right now? The cat books.
Oh God, I think Warriors slipped into that that life cycle of a book where anyone can write something in the universe. You know, like I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure
Okay.
I've heard people like, oh, I published a book that's basically in the Warriors
All right, so
series.
we I don't want to go like read through the wikis right now, which is where I'm going to get the real numbers. So using the Google AI answer, so keep that in mind. The AI overview kind of sucks half the time. It admits it is counting the novellas and the comics and stuff, so a lot of double dipping, kind of like how you wouldn't count the comics Wings of Fire to be separate books. But so counting all the main series, the novellas, the field guides, the comic books and all that, counting all of those, 120 books in the Warriors Cat series.
Gross. Fucking
So
gross.
if we half that to be like real mainline books would be a good estimate. 60, that's still a fucking lot. Yeah, so Wings of Fire is gonna be the next Warriors Cats, which is really fitting considering Tui T. Sutherland actually is or was at one point part of the pen name that is Aaron Hunter. All right, so back on topic. We're gonna do a spoiler-free review for the Lost Firebreather.
Yes.
Yes.
Forgive me, I still don't know exactly how. I need to think about my words very carefully because having the book fresh in my head and avoiding talking about spoilers, it's like I don't really know what to say.
Yeah,
Because
I'll
technically everything is a spoiler. The book
everything
isn't
is
even
spoiled.
out.
The book, as of right now, technically does not exist. Everything is technically a spoiler. To give the briefest, generalist, most gentle of synopses, it is self-proclaimed by the author himself that this is supposed to be basically Avatar The Last Airbender, but with dragons. The story follows Ash, a lost, not last, I keep making that mistake, lost firebreather. So he's like one of the members of like his dying race, where the dragons are divided into subspecies based on the element that they are aligned with. Yep. My conception, I think, is that the word? My conception going into this was that he controls fire, these other dragons control earth, these ones control wind, and so on. And that's kind of a good, nice, dirty way to think about it. After going through the book, there are some slight tweaks to be made to that. It's not completely Last Airbender with dragons, but it's still pretty close. In this one, the fire element are the victims. Haha.
Yeah, so there's...
Everything changed when the fire dragons were attacked.
Yeah, so there are shade stalkers, which are basically camouflageable assassin dragons, live in the jungles, and then there's the fire breathers, which
Earth Shapers.
The Earth Shapers, Cloud Seekers. Cloud Seekers are very wind. Well,
they are
just the name.
They visually would describe to be very long, and I imagined Sisu with wings. Honestly, is how I imagined them.
Yeah, that's how I imagined it too.
Yeah, they didn't want to fly with. He didn't want to make them fly with body fire, so he gave them wings. Still, I think he also gave them wings to make the bad guys a little more horrific. We'll get to that in a second.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just going on. That's just. I think that's why he gave everybody wings.
Yeah.
Even the Earth dragons have wings. When I feel like you could have gone away with the Earth dragons, who are already described to be big and bulky. Could have been the one species without wings, right? Earth dragons, no wings, kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And then the last tribe is the Iron. Crap. What are they?
I can never remember. It's Iron something. It's not Iron Keeper.
Give me a second. Let me open my notes.
To the notes.
Iron Scales.
Iron Scales.
So the Iron Scales do not really have wings. It's apparently a birth defect if they do get wings, but they're so small and useless that they just cut them off.
So it's, quote, a birth defect because they also live in a very polluted environment that has kind of like destroyed their physiology.
Iron Scale cities are basically like coal punk nightmares.
Yeah. Me, Bantam loves them.
I like the concept.
I imagined a forge city from the Warhammer 40k universe.
Yeah.
Just nothing but metal, giant buildings, and smog everywhere.
Yeah. and they to compensate for their inability to fly or have any natural weapons, they don themselves in heavy plates of armor. Basically, they're kind of like dwarves from Final Fantasy XIV or any other race where they don't want you to see what they really look like. Their
Mm.
armor is their personality, it is their face, and they do their best to never have anyone see what they look like.
Yeah, it is like deemed inappropriate, I guess.
To
To
them,
be.
not wearing armor is basically being literally naked.
Mm.
It's their clothing. It's they can't go out without wearing a full suit of armor, including a helmet and covering every part of themselves. Venter in the D&D says that hopes they have different designed armor. They do actually describe some of the dragons as wearing like chainmail, whether it be rusted, or some of them are wearing like a mishmash of chainmail and plate. The one of the main characters wears a full suit of iron armor. It's just plate mail, highly polished. So the condition of your armor also shows you your station in life. Obviously, if you're rich and you can afford it, you can polish up your armor and have very perfectly fitting like a well-tailored suit, and then other people are wearing rusted pieces that don't fit quite right.
Yeah. So yeah, the initial snapshot of the world you have going into this is there are 5 dragon tribes with 5 different elements, and I guess the idea going in would be that the elements were shadow, metal, fire, air, and earth, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is not. Instead of air, the cloud seekers are actually water. That's like one mistake that I made when I go into it. And next week, you guys will hear my crackpot theories on what the elements actually are, because after reading it and seeing and like getting some explanations and whatnot, I'm like, I think that instead of being shadow, it's this. I think instead of being fire, it's this, or whatever, right? We'll get into crackpot theories next week. But honestly, if those were the elements, if it was actually the Shade Seekers were actually shadow dragons, then like there's a 6th species hiding somewhere, and they're light dragons. Come on. Oh yeah, and so the Empire, the Iron Scales, are the baddies in this. They're the ones that attacked and wiped out the Firebreathers. And so Ash is raised by Shadow Stalkers. Shade Stalkers? Shadow Stalkers.
Shadow Stalkers.
Shade Stalkers.
I don't know. I wrote little notes about the main characters in the book, and I wrote down their clans, but I did not write down what the Shade Stalkers were.
All of my notes are on plot points and specific scenes and not on the world building itself, so it's like, damn, I should have written down like what all the species names were. But alas, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Shade Stalkers. He was raised by Shade Stalkers. He finds out he's not really a Shade Stalker. Oh my god, it's so obvious, right? Ends up going on an adventure to try to find out who he is and where he came from, and the book just kind of follows mostly him. It's a dual...
Absolutely not. It is a 50-50 split.
Yeah, it is a dual POV book between Ash, the Lost Firebreather, and Pike, the Prince of the Iron Scale.
And I really enjoyed the Ash sections of the book. Hated the Pike sections.
Pike being he is the Zuko tie-in. If this is supposed to be Avatar as with dragons. He is the Zuko tie-in, and he is actually really difficult to like at the start because this is before he stops being an asshole. So that's rough, buddy. Yes.
Yeah. Without getting into spoilers, I found it impossible to like him at all, even at the end. I actually found myself actively cheering for his death, but
by the author's own admission, and I have to agree with him completely, having read it. He is aiming this book towards a younger audience. He's actually aiming it towards the kind of same age group that Wings of Fire is aimed for. So, for all intents and purposes, this is technically a children's book. You may be able to enjoy it. If you like Wings of Fire, you'll probably still like this. But maybe it's something you can't get into. It definitely
moves
feels
1,000
different.
miles an hour.
It moves really fast, and the writing style is very simplistic. I honestly hate using that word because simplistic is usually taken as an insult. I don't mean it that way. It's a lot. It's very watered down and very straightforward and blunt as it moves through the scenes. Right?
I'll do you one better. Yes, to most people, simplistic sounds like an insult. I actually really had no problems reading this book, and I was able to get through it pretty quickly. I am on the other end of the spectrum where I actually appreciate that.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm someone who has read a lot of really big, really complicated books that use very like interesting language. Let's say stuff like Age of Fire, right? Bantam hates Age of Fire because they have a whole mythology, and he doesn't want to hear about their sea and their saw and just stuff like that, right? Mating Flight, also a very much more complicatedly written book. Bantam also hated it, and stuff like that. Stuff I have enjoyed much heftier books, let's call them.
Well, like one of the things that I really appreciated about this book was how simplistic even the character names were. One of the most difficult things for most people, if you're at a party and you're introduced to 5 or 6 people, and then a couple hours later, who were those people? It's sometimes difficult to recall names, especially when they're fantasy names. Um, like if you have a fantasy novel and one of your characters' name is like Jorethska or whatever, it's like what? Um, but the main characters in this book are Ash, Pike, Hammer, Scout, and Albuca. So it's like they're not hard to remember.
What is an albuca? Everything else is an item. What's an albuca? It's a plant. Okay.
Yeah, Albuca is Ash's half brother, and he's a shade stalker. So I guess all shade stalkers are kind of named after plants and animals. Um, I don't really know if what Firebreather's naming scheme is, although the main character was named after a tree, like ash tree.
Well, because he was given a shade stalker name.
Yeah. And then Pike, all of the iron scales are named after like weapons or claw, hammer, steel, tower, you know, steel. And then Scout, Cloud Seekers are all named after like typical Morrowind Argonian
I
names.
was gonna say there are Argonian names.
They're
Scout's real
Argonian
name
names.
is Scout the Skies.
Yeah, and then there's like seeks the knowledge or forges the fire or whatever. I really like their names. it kind of made me giggle at one point in the book where Scout is just talking about other people and she's like, "Oh, and then there's, like reads the books. He's in the library reading books, and it's like, yeah, okay.
It's not that blunt.
No,
Phantom's
it's
just not
not, but
creative. But
it
they are definitely very does the thing names.
does the thing. I just now realized that almost all of the notes that I took are useless because they're all spoiler.
Yeah, a lot of the notes I have are gonna be for the second half also. That's fine. That's also why we're stumbling a little bit because we're trying to avoid spoilers. So, like, you guys literally have not had a chance to read this yet, so we have to be much more gentler than normal with how we step through this story. Okay, so we give the general synopsis. We painted the world building picture on like there's these 5 different tribes, right? And the general idea is that yes, Ash's people have been genocided by the Iron Scales, and the adventures follows that, right? We have the point of views being from a fire dragon and from an iron dragon, and it just the first book is just all going to be the fallout of that. And I imagine the future books are going to be trying to like fix it, kind of like how in Avatar by the end of season 3, I think it was season 3 of Korra, which I guess you could say is season 6 overall. They end up, getting airbenders back. It's some bullshit reasoning, but they got the airbenders back, right? Bantam,
Yes.
overall, did you like the book?
Uh that's that's the problem is that overall I'd give it a 6 out of 10, and the reason why is because I loved everything with Ash and I hated everything with Pike. And so every time the book started climbing in the rating, it would drop back down because of Pike. And it to me, it wasn't like, oh, then it must have been great writing. It's to me, Pike was a completely unlikable character. His chapters aggravated the piss out of me, and I found myself actively hating reading anything. As soon as
Mhm.
the chapter started and it says chapter, whatever Pike, I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Um,
Pike is definitely, at this stage of his development, very angsty emo teenager, kind of, is the vibe I got.
yeah, it was a little heavy-handed. I hated every moment that he was speaking or interacting with anyone. He had zero redeemable qualities, learned almost no lessons, and it really aggravated me to read him. and then I get to the next chapter, and it would say Ash at the top of the chapter, and I'm like, oh, thank God.
Honestly, same.
Yeah, Ash's chapters tended to teach you more about the world. They were more interesting to read because they kind of invited you into this world to tell you about it. Whereas Pike's was like, here's why this world sucks. And
Yeah,
it was like, oh.
it's really rough to talk about without getting into spoiler territory, but I'm going to try my best. Ash's chapters were very, like Ben says, around the world because he's doing a lot of traveling, right? He's trying to figure out who he is and where he came from and what happened to his people. The Shadestalkers, at least the village he grew up in, are very isolationist, so he has no idea what goes on. He didn't even know that the Firebreathers were wiped out at the beginning of the book, right? That's how isolationist they were. So he does a lot of traveling and a lot of discovery. He is kind of the excuse to get things explained to the reader, right?
I mean, not really, because even Ash had to have things explained to him.
Yeah, Ash is the excuse for explaining stuff to the reader.
Oh, I thought you said Pike.
No, Ash. Talk about Ash right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that his chapters are fun from a world building and exploratory standpoint, and he's just also a much more likable character. My only complaint about Ash is he's a little too nice, like to the point where, like, that's like nauseatingly sweet.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, there were a couple of moments I felt.
Not going to talk about them in this half.
Yes, I understand.
But yeah, that would be my only complaint about him. His brother, I fucking loved his brother. Albuca is my favorite character.
Albuca is the best character in this whole book.
Yeah.
Followed by Scout, followed by Hammer.
Yeah, Hammer's pretty good too. Pike's chapters, what's the nicest way to put this? Pike's chapters do feel kind of important to the general story that the author wanted to tell, but Pike at this point is not a likable character. I don't think he's supposed to be a likable character, but it just makes it really hard to get through his chapters. He does come across as a conceited and egotistical teenager because his entire motivation is, I want to get my half name, which culturally for them is you're born with the name Pike, or let's use his brother. You're born with the name Tower, right? And then when you do something meaningful to society or important enough or just something in general that helps you discover where you belong in society, so it could be your job, your vocation, or your calling, your whatever, you get the second half of your name. So he became Tower Shield. That was his full name. Now Tower Shield got his full name by just being the eldest prince. He is in line for the throne, so his was kind of handed to him, but that's supposed to be a general idea, is when you discover very My Little Pony, when you get your cutie mark, you get your full name, right?
I will say that the half names were explained in the book, and I thought they were pretty good. Getting the half name Wire means that you helped figure out how to fix the energy problems in the city. Getting the half name Steam meant that you helped with fuel production or energy.
Yeah. Through context, I kind of gathered that again, the half name Wing meant you were an airship pilot?
Yes. And then Shield, I think, meant like good soldier. Claw meant really good fighter. Stuff like that. Like you were out of context, in context, the half name kind of told other people what you earned that half name for, which I actually really appreciate. I like that.
It's a really good world building. I like the concept of the half name. But yeah, because Pike's entire motivation is getting his half name, that motivation to get this half name causes him to do some really questionable things. And you being there with him, watching him do these horrible, horrible things, especially when you're putting her up against a cinnamon bun like Ash, it's just, he becomes so unlikable. And like Phantom's right, he doesn't learn his lessons until the end of the book. And very dangerous to be spoilery there. But the point is, because he doesn't learn his lessons, he feels like he has no redeeming qualities for the vast majority of the book. So it becomes really difficult to sit through his stuff. The only reason two reasons. The only two reasons why I didn't just outright skip his chapters were A, because I'm doing this to review it, right? So I can't just be skipping chapters. But B, because I liked the characters that he was with. I liked Hammer, and so I wanted to read Pike's chapters for the sake of Hammer. But it's like, if I was going to be giving tips to other authors, right? Give Pike redeeming qualities so that he's not a slog to get through.
Yeah. I also writing scheme wise, I did like that Pike and Ash, the way their stories, the way their chapters work is they kind of form like a half circle and then they hit and then they bounce back out and form another circle and then hit. So they're constantly like meeting up every couple chapters, for various reasons, and I actually kind of like that because you're kind of jumping back in time when you switch characters and then catching back up. There was one note that I wrote that might not be spoilery, um, where I initially was just kind of upset because at one point Pike was catching up to Ash, and I was like, there's no way one dragon flying over the trees can be caught up by a dragon who can't fly and is carrying, hundreds of pounds of armor and has no wings. And it really aggravated the piss out of me. I was like, oh, what a bunch of BS that he's able to keep up with Ash. Seems like bunch of
No,
crap. But
if okay, I don't give me more detail because again, no spoiler. But if it's the scene that I'm thinking of, he was in an airship. That's why he caught up. It wasn't because under his own power of locomotion.
I just forwarded it to you.
Ugh, now there's gonna be a big empty blank spot in the recording. 1 second. Yeah, I'm gonna refute that next week. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
All right, all right. Back on topic. Okay, so going through my little bullet points here that we normally go through, we're kind of jumping all over the place because we're trying to step lightly on plot points. Bantam, the quality of the book, its dialogue, its writing style, the prose, that kind of stuff.
9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah. The only complaints I would have about it, again, would just be it's overly simple, but purposefully being written for a younger audience. It makes sense, and I can't really hold against that. So, yeah, it was pretty well written for the target audience group that he was going for. The believability / verisimilitude. Did everything make sense in contents of the world itself?
Yes. Sorry, I keep naturally going back to a 10 scale. We're on a 5 scale for this, so for my last
if you would prefer a 10 scale, we can just try to do that from this point moving forward.
4.8 out of 5 for the first question, and then
4.8.
well, because 9.5 out of 10. I don't know. And then for verisimilitude, I'd say
yes, my score is 4.763292.
Yes.
That's how fine pointed I want to get on this.
Absolutely. I thought about that number for a long time. Yeah. But believability, I'd say 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Nothing seemed there was enough fantasy and magic mixed with a lot of gritty realism, with the iron scales, that I actually really kind of thought that the world seemed really diverse and vibrant. I liked it.
My problem with this book's verisimilitude, this is just a pet peeve on my end. I understand when you try to mix science and magic to the point where you try to use science to explain how magic works, sometimes gets a little wonky. Hopefully this isn't very spoilery. When they try to explain part of Ash's fire abilities, right? They you see, oxygen is used. The fire burns oxygen, and so when you do this fire stuff, you're more quickly burning up the air in your body, and so that's why you passed out, right? And it's I can see what you're going for by trying to mix the two, science and magic, but it's just something that I personally don't really like. Magic is magic, science is science, and putting them together tends to make very messy situations.
I could be wrong, but I kind of want to throw you under the bus for a moment here.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you liked that. I thought you liked technology and magic combining.
I do like them. I do like them mixing in a setting. Final Fantasy is a very good example. Final Fantasy 15 is the
Iron
best
Scales
example.
Of the Garlean Empire.
Yeah, the idea that you have cars and TV and cell phones. At the same time, you are throwing fireballs at each other, and you can block bullets with personal shields and stuff. I like that as a setting. I don't like it when you try to use the science to explain the magic. You're see, okay. the reason why you can block the bullets with this magical force was because every living creature has this innate energy, and you're just able to compress the energy into a glass-like substance. That is what I start to not like.
Okay.
But yeah, so aside from that little nitpick on a world building trying to use science to explain magic situation, it's fine. verisimilitude in the book is pretty good. Uh, it was also a little wonky because I went into this with the misconceptions of it being extremely Avatar The Last Airbender. So I'm like, just bend the fire, just do it. And they can't do it. It's not completely Avatar The Last Airbender. It doesn't translate 1-to-1. So there were a couple of times I was like, wait, this doesn't make any sense because I have the preconceived notion of this, and I was wrong. So try to it gets pitched as Avatar Bow with Dragons. Try to separate that in your mind a bit before going into this, so you don't run into any confusion issues like I did. Bantam, its dream fulfillment, was it dragony enough?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Any book that does not even vaguely mention humans, even in an ancient extinct sense, love it. 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5.
Yeah, there are no humans in this book at all. This is not a Wings of Fire situation where it's like, oh look, there's a tiny little scavenger creature, and then turns out they're a big fucking deal in book 15. This is all dragons, so it is very fulfillment of that. Bantam, would you think words? Do you think the dragons were just humans in dragon suits?
Kinda, yeah. There were a couple mentions of like tails curling around legs in fear or, embarrassment. There were a couple mentions of like, using wings to like make gestures or hugging others into wings. But aside from that, everything was hands and feet. And, there were times where it's kind of like, oh, right, they're dragons. Like imagine you had, amnesia and every couple sentences you kind of forgot what you were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, this kind of comes with the territory of it trying to be overly simplistic for the sake of being accessible to a younger audience. Is a lot of times you do lose track of the body shape of the characters involved, to the point where half the time my mental image had them being bipedal antho dragons, right?
Yeah.
But they are quadrupeds. But because there is not a lot of explaining the way the bodies are moving, you kind of lose track of that, especially when they start to use tools and stuff. Again, it's understandably it is because of the age group it's targeting, the demographic it's targeting. It's trying to remain simple, but that's what I mean when I like bulkier books. Like Age of Fire explains overly much how certain actions are being done to where you're like, no, he is a four-legged dragon on four legs. He's not using his hands, right? There are a couple other times, like in Laser Scales also, where it's like, nope, four-legged dragon, he can still use his hands to interact with things, but when he's carrying stuff, he is explained as putting it under his wing and then curling his wing to his body, or carrying it in his mouth or whatever. Just simple stuff like that. A lot of just small, nuancey descriptors like that were not used in this book, so yeah. I lost track of if they were bipedal or quadrupedal dragons.
There were two moments that stood out to me, one for the good and one for the worst. The one for the worst was that apparently the Iron Scale Kingdom is like the warmongers and, blah, blah, blah. And it's never, despite having quote unquote soldiers, it's never described that they really have any weapons. So I guess they just use their armor to like headbutt people. They don't carry swords or spears or whatever. But the one positive light is one of the things that Pike has to do is take inventory, and so he has like a wax tablet on his forearm, and he uses his claw to take tally. And I thought, okay, you know what? That's pretty cool. Because you're using it's kind of like in Skyrim with the dragon language, it's basically dragon claws etched into stone. It's like, yeah, it's the same kind of thing. It's like they're taking notes using wax and claws. I thought that was pretty neat. That seemed very dragony, like I can't hold a pen, so
yeah. And then there's another scene later on, much farther towards the end, where someone's drawing a schematic for something, and it's never explained how they're drawing it, so you left to assume he's using a writing implement. They explained writing claws at some point, but again, I feel like DM Gilmore is very fast with writing his books. Like, he told me that his second book is already in the final stages of editing right now, right? So he's very fast. He thinks that's a strength of his, and I agree. It's great that he can write that fast. A lot of authors can usually put out one book every 8 months, I think, is the average for relatively fast authors. But I feel like that just means that at the beginning of this book, he had a lot of ideas he wanted to explain, like the wax tablet writing system, the writing clause when you get to the cloud seekers and stuff, right? and then towards the end, when he's like wrapping up the book to get started on the next one, starts to skip over these fine details, and so you start losing track of the body shape of the dragons. As far as humans in dragon suits,
I wouldn't
a little.
say,
Hold on,
yeah,
you finished, yeah.
I wouldn't say that they were. It's just that I don't think he did enough to indicate that they are dragons.
Yeah, to me, humans and dragon suits is less of a how they interact with the world around them as far as tools and stuff, and more of a how do they think. Uh,
Yeah.
so, like, mating flight, the dragons in that were very obviously dragons. They had a completely alien way of thinking, right? Um, Tooth and Claw, however, the dragons were very human and dragon suits there because, with a few small exceptions on their culture, so eating the flesh of dead dragons, and that's how they gain power, right? It was a very Victorian setting, and so a lot of it was like, yeah, they acted like Victorian gentlemen and gentlewomen, right? Uh, Age of Fire did a great job of point of viewing the dragon. The dragon point of view was very alien in how the dragon characters thought, as well as uh, books like what's the last one we read recently? The Dragon Sorcerer, Nico Sandumas from Claws Out, right? A very, even though he literally was in human form, he still had a very alien, very dragon way of seeing the world. I like Lazy Scales because with the whole concept of the hunger you can't control and all that, it kind of was a different way of looking at the world. One of my favorite parts from Lazy Scales is when he and some of the other dragons are kind of talking about like how come we don't feel bad about killing and eating these things, right? And they explain like, well, as predators you probably don't develop empathy, which is why the second a creature is dead, it's now just food, right? You stop looking at it as a person. Stuff like that kind of shapes the way the dragon looks at the world, and when you play into that, you get a very draconic point of view, right? Whereas in this book, I felt like there was really none of that. And so, for the most part, they were very human-like in their perception of the world around them. Am I wrong, Phantom?
No, no.
Sorry. All right. The only real cultural difference between the dragons in this world and humans in the real world is that in this book setting, there is slavery in the capital. The Iron Scales take slaves, and when they take the slaves, they cut off the wings. And so, especially from Pike's point of view, and this is actually a big character development point later on, the Iron Scales all just accept slavery as normal. Slavery is necessary for civilization, where if you do commit a crime, you become a slave. That's just the way it works, right? That's just how it goes. So that is the only instance of alien thought that I can think of, honestly. But yeah, arguably the fact that the dragons are very similar in thinking style to humans, human and dragon suit syndrome, could also just be because trying to be for a younger audience, it's a lot more accessible and much simpler in its presentation. So
Yeah. I will say
kind of comes with the
though
territory.
that this book being aimed at children, if you start at a 5 out of 5, like this is a 5 out of 5 children's book. I think when you involve genocide and body mutilation and, there's a couple scenes in the book that I can't talk about. I'm like, holy shit, this is a kid's book. All right. Like, I understand that war and stuff happen in certain books and stuff, but to use the word genocide several times, I'm like, that's a little heavy for a kid's book. Also, body mutilation, having their wings cut off, and slavery, and then,
To be fair,
another.
Wings of Fire, a quote kids book, had a lot of mutilation, dismemberment, and murder in it too.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
is.
let's just shove the fucking scorpion tail through this creature's heart. Right?
Yeah.
That's fine. Let's just have this other dragon go crazy from lack of water, so he's very dehydrated and snap his neck audibly. That's okay. Kids won't be traumatized by this at all.
Yeah, and then there's one other thing that I can't talk about until the next episode, but I told Ray in private, so.
Ugh, more private talks. I have to edit this, man. Yes, Phantom, that was kind of fucked. Alright. And you guys will never know what we said. Alright, Phantom, the last question on our normal bullet point list. What would you overall rate this book, and would you live here?
I will rate this book 4.5 out of 5, and yes, I would. I even thought about the fact, like, I remember once I learned all 5 of the major dragon clans or species or whatever, I was like, yeah, I'd probably be an Iron Scale. I loved the idea. Like Pike was a
Slaver.
Pike was a likable character when he was very first introduced, because he woke up and he had to spend time affixing his armor and putting it on before he could show himself to the world. And I'm like, you know what? I would love to be a dragon that's just covered in fucking heavy plate mail. You
Okay.
know,
All right,
like the
hold on. But like one thing, sorry to interrupt. But like one thing, because you made me think of it, I don't want to lose it. One of the themes of this book is self-discovery, discovering who you are, be true to yourself, true to your heart. Whatever. I'm gonna start singing. And so it comes across very heavy-handed in the opening. Both characters, Ash and Pike, within their first chapters, look at themselves and say, "I hate me," or "I'm
oh yeah.
ugly," or whatever. It does come across as very heavy-handed, and I remember Bantam groaning about that at the start. It
Yeah, both
it it
characters are like, "Oh, I hate my life and everything
it
sucks."
it starts really heavy, but within like the first couple of chapters, it's not a thing anymore. Like Ash is still trying to find where he belongs, and Pike still wants his half name and all that, right? But it starts out really heavy-handed. Like, whoa, okay, we're just immediately starting with hating yourself. Okay, shields up when you get to that point of their chapters, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just made me think that when you said Pike started out very likable. I'm like, yeah, but he hated himself. All right, my rating, I would 3.5, maybe 4 out of 5. Like, I really, really like his world building, and his writing style was fine for the audience he was targeting. It's just because he wrote Lazy Skills, which I love so much. It's like, this isn't like Lazy Skills, which is a personal thing, right? But would you live here? I think so. If I got to
Okay.
pick what tribe I was, yeah.
I was gonna say, follow-up question: what tribe would you be?
That's a good question. Because, all right, it's a hard question because A, I suck at giving answers, first of all. But B, and you'll see next week, I have a full-on conspiracy board with the red twine and everything on what the elements actually are. Because as I got to this book, I'm like, I don't think this is really iron. I don't think this is really fire. Is this whatever, right? So I can't answer that without going through my conspiracy board. So I have to say that question for next time.
No, you have to choose right now.
I have to choose right now.
You can't. You can change your answer next time, but you need to pick between those 5 right now,
Right
based
now?
on all what you know for a fact in the books as they exist, or in the book as they exist.
All right, so opening snapshot, so without the conspiracy board?
Yes,
Fire,
I
just
put
because
them.
fire is cool.
There you go. That's that's all I needed.
If there was like a lightning tribe or an ice tribe, I'd maybe pick those, just because they're not as common as fire in a lot of things. Like I built a D&D character recently to be all about lightning, because lightning is just has more finesse than fire, right? As Libras and Demons would say. But no, without those, yeah, fire is just the coolest out of what is available. All right, so hopefully we didn't accidentally spoil too much.
I don't think
So
so.
we're gonna close out this episode here, everyone. Book should be out by the time this episode is up. I'm gonna try to edit this really fast, in like either the late night or early morning, and get it out by like noon tomorrow, hopefully. But yeah, book is out. Go read it. And in a week, we will come back with the other half of our episode, just like we did with Scales of Honor, Scales of Fate, Scales of Fate. Fuck, there's too many Scales of.
See, that's one of my biggest problems with Dragon books. Is everything is it just take like 5 or 6 words: wing, fire, scale, claw, tooth, fucking scale, whatever, and just put all those words into a thing and just shake it, and there you
Yeah,
go.
let's see. There was claws out. There's tooth and claw. There's fourth wing. There's wings of fire. There's age of fire. Scales of fate. Scales of honor. Scales and spells.
It's so dumb. Come up with a new fucking name for your books, people. I'll accept the Lost Firebreather, because at least it doesn't have scales or wings in the title.
Scales of the Lost Firebreather.
Of fate.
Scales of the flaming hope of clawing wings.
I'm just gonna take like the top 10 words that people title their dragon books and just shake them all up, and then that's gonna be the title of my book. It's just gonna be like Dragon Fang Wing Claw Scale Fate. Book 1.
Book 1 claw, book 2 wing, book 2 scale. All right. Okay, we're dangerously close to getting off topic now at this point.
Yeah.
All right, so yes, everyone, this episode 2 halves, second half next week. We will see you then. We're gonna have all the spoilery talks. We will get Ray's conspiracy board on what the actual elements are. We'll talk about the characters in more detail and all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
All right.
and I promise you, next episode will be amazing because I took notes this time.
Yeah, we both have notes. All right, so we'll see you guys next week.
All right, bye.
Goodbye.